While the truncheon may be used in lieu of conversation, words will always retain their power. Words offer the means to meaning, and for those who will listen, the enunciation of truth. And the truth is, there is something terribly wrong with this country, isn't there?
Nerdrotic.com.
Greetings, you over 1 million practitioners of common sense and the 40% who haven't subscribed yet. A wise man once said politics is downstream from culture, and he was absolutely right. Another absolute truth is authoritarianism lies at the bottom of the slippery slope. Unfortunately, our good friends at the UK have arrived there and then descended further. Now, normally on this channel, we're talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly from pop culture, and occasionally taking the piss out of Hollywood because, quite frankly, it's fun to point out the hypocrisy from your professional adult pretenders who like to complain about life from the safety of their $6 million mansions, or tell us how to live from the red carpets of award shows where they're wearing $250,000 dresses, millions of dollars worth of jewelry, and they use their children as accessories. And while this video definitely has something to do with Tinseltown, we're taking on a little bit more serious subject matter for this channel anyway, and taking on a particular topic that is taboo on YouTube: the truth. Now, as most of you have already heard, writer-comedian Graham Linehan, the co-creator of Father Ted and the IT Crowd, two pretty big shows in the UK, was arrested at Heathrow Airport last week by 5 armed officers over tweets. I'll repeat that. A comedian was arrested in the UK by 5 armed police officers over posts on X Twitter. And what should be more disturbing is this authoritarian shit has been going on in the UK for a long time. Who could forget everyone's pal Count Dankula, who got in his trouble with the law, as you all know, for his doggo throwing up a socialist of the national kind salute, which was hilarious. Now, side note and a sad note, Count Dankula's dog, Buddha, went to heaven this past August 29th. Rest in peace, you're a good doggo. It's also sad to say that what happened to Graham Linehan and many others won't be the last time something like this happens, but the good news is it actually did cause some overdue outrage, even from America.
Comedian Graham Linehan was arrested at Heathrow Airport in the UK over past social media posts he made on transgender issues.
I think this is going to be a case that's going to be a big boiling issue for the UK.
We had the disgraceful scenes of a comedy writer, incredible comedy writer, Graham Linehan, being arrested. I mean, for things he said, posted online.
So we've had multiple situations where free speech and the establishment has been cracking down on ordinary citizens. And this is probably the worst and the most climatic incident that's happened. And I hope it's going to be a line in the sand to actually say enough is enough.
Except for one segment of the United States, the people who actually write and perform comedy in Hollywood. Wasn't it just over a month ago when Tinseltown had their knickers for men in a twist over the firing of Stephen Colbert? The media, and more importantly, his competing hosts, took his side, saying it was an abuse of power from President Trump, when in truth, the show cost $100 million a year to produce and lost $40 million last year. And this probably had a lot to do with the show being criminally unfunny. Not that many people were watching it. The Pfizer money dried up, and don't you dare bring up that USAID money. Anyway, let's get back to Graham Linehan's arrest over tweets. Now, this video's inspiration comes from an article written by Christian Toto of Hollywood and Toto, where he suggests that Hollywood must speak out against England's free speech assault. Graham Linehan's shocking arrest must rouse celebrities from partisan slumber. I couldn't agree more. As Christian points out, British comic Graham Linehan's arrest this week over allegedly anti-manual transmission social media posts proved so shocking, even Hollywood press outlets covered it. Well, we'll get into that. They didn't wait a day or two until the story calmed down either. Both Deadline and The Hollywood Reporter shared the news mere hours after it exploded on social media, and this is far from an isolated incident. Now, granted, this was before we got more information, but I want you to notice how Deadline framed this. And remember, you can't hate the corporate legacy access media enough. Graham Linehan has said he was arrested at Heathrow Airport yesterday over posts he made on X. London's Metropolitan Police did not confirm the Father Ted's creator's name, but said that a man was arrested yesterday at Heathrow Airport after he arrived on an inbound American Airlines flight, which would chime with the timing of Linehan's claim. And in Graham's Substack article titled, "I Just Got Arrested Again," which of course Deadline didn't link to, he said, "The moment I stepped off the plane at Heathrow, 5 armed police officers were waiting. Not 1, not 2, 5. They escorted me to a private area and told me I was under arrest for 3 tweets. Deadline also said during his arrest and questioning, Linehan said he fell ill and was taken to the hospital after a nurse checked his blood pressure and found it to be more than 200.
Linehan wrote online that he was taken to hospital, where this picture was taken, and that he told police his tweet was a serious point, made with a joke and not a call to violence.
Again, Deadline reported that Graham said he fell ill, and then a nurse came by and confirmed it. A 200 blood pressure is stroke level. And here's the worst bit. According to Deadline, the arrest was made by officers from the MPS Aviation Unit. It is routine for officers policing airports to carry firearms, which is true. These were not drawn or used at any point during the arrest. They weren't actually pointing the guns at you. And hey, we Americans are used to people packing, but Brits aren't. Again, you can't hate the corporate access legacy media enough, and make sure you try a little harder tomorrow. Well, it turns out the arrest was recorded, and a couple of days later, it came out.
It's alleged that on the 19th of April 2025, you published a post on X that was deemed to be intended to stir up hatred, incite violence on the grounds of sexual orientation. What was the post? I'll tell you. You sure? Comedy writer. You idiot. You're under arrest. I'm under arrest. You know what this country looks like.
Now, what were the 3 tweets that got him in trouble? Well, I'm risking getting in trouble even talking about them, which is part of the problem that we'll get to, but forgive me for using stupid YouTube speak on this one. But if a manual transmission is in a female-only space, he is committing a violent, abusive act. Make a scene, call the cops, and if all else fails, punch him in the cojones. That was from April 20th of this year. From April 19th, you got a photo you can smell, something I've posted on Twitter multiple times. And a follow-up to that is calling that smelly group of people a bunch of misogynists and homophobes, something I'm getting called in the comments section right now. And now Graham Linehan is literally criminally offensive, which is something every comedian strives for until they get arrested. Now, some big names called it out in the UK, including the very popular amongst a certain community, J.K. Rowling. What the f*** has the UK become? This is totalitarianism, utterly deplorable. And while he doesn't mention Graham directly, Ricky Gervais posted this: if you don't believe in free speech for people who you disagree with and even hate what they stand for, then you don't believe in free speech. And that man should host every award show because people would actually watch. John Cleese, who famously won't be putting a MAGA hat on anytime soon, responded as well. I see it took 5 London police officers to arrest a comedian. Meanwhile, people in Chelsea have learned not to waste their time reporting burglaries. Is this an intelligent use of our resources? And as Christian Toto points out, celebrities can embrace any political view they wish. I agree. And they can have the right to share said opinions far and wide. We need artists to stand up for free speech, to call out injustice like this and shed light on the problem before it gets worse. Well, as you know, things can always get worse, and far be it from me to point out to the likes of John Cleese, J.K. Rowling, or even Ricky Gervais that this oppression, this authoritarianism is coming from the side you voted for. I've got a recent example for you. Graham Linehan. Do you know what the single condition of his bail was? According to Graham, I am not to go on Twitter. That's it. No threats, no speeches about the seriousness of my crimes, just a legal gag order designed to shut me up while I'm in the UK and demand I face a further interview in October. Well, that's where you got him, Graham, because Twitter doesn't exist anymore. Now, Graham has certainly been salty in the past on Twitter. That probably would have gotten him banned back in the Jack Dorsey days, but not in the Elon days. And I would go so far as to say he wouldn't get banned on YouTube, maybe age restricted or demonetized, but not banned. Unfortunately, though, he will get arrested in his home country. So I hate to break this to you, UK, while everyone is waiting for things to get worse, they have gotten worse. Because this should deeply disturb everyone, and it doesn't. But outside of those few British examples over here in the United States, it's been absolute crickets from Hollywood, from the people who actually produce and write comedy and all other sorts of pretend. We haven't heard a peep out of the likes of Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Kimmel, or Jimmy Fallon, Or Howard Stern, who isn't back yet, but even if he did come back and said something, would anybody know it? Where's Chris Evans? Where's Mark Ruffalo? Where's Don Cheadle? These guys will bitch about anything. Hell, get the rest of the Avengers. Has anybody heard from Mark Hamill? Where's George Takei? How about Stephen King? I only bring this up because Hollywood in total had all of a sudden rediscovered the importance of free speech, erroneously applying it to the firing of Stephen Colbert, who was just bad at his job. And there might be some Brits out there going, what is this Yankee twat talking about our politics for? Well, to that I'd say, really? Really? Although, could we have Craig Ferguson back? Now, I am happy to report, as of today, Graham Linehan is allowed back on X Twitter and posting like a madman. He's already made his first court appearance, and it doesn't appear that he's backing down. And although they don't know it yet, he's actually standing up for the people who currently hate him. Forgive me for stating the obvious, but setting a precedence like, for example, criminalizing speech is a canon that will eventually be aimed at everyone. Do you think they're just going to stop with some protected groups? Ask yourself this: how far does this go? When does it end? The answer is, it doesn't. Again, to state the obvious, there is no community, group, identity, organization, or individual that is above criticism. To create a protected class is to make them unaccountable, and yes, I know there are plenty of them out there. If you're out there thinking they're trying to suppress our free speech to demoralize us into capitulation, you'd be right. Some may say the UK has devolved into the world of V for Vendetta, although you would have to replace the authoritarian leader from the right with an authoritarian leader from the left. I would say a far more accurate description would be the UK has devolved into the world of Demolition Man. Case in point, in the words of Graham Linehan, in a country where child enthusiasts escape sentencing, where knife crime is out of control, where women are assaulted and harassed every time they gather to speak, the state has mobilized 5 armed officers to arrest a comedy writer for a tweet. Although we have these wonderful things in America like the First and Second Amendment and states' rights, if it wasn't for that election of Trump last year, love him or hate him, and that cultural shift, we'd be right there with you, UK. And listen, both of our countries have very similar problems, including but not limited to young women aren't safe on trains over here, but across the pond, young girls aren't safe walking around without having garden tools to protect themselves. Hell, it's become a problem to raise a nation's flag in its own country, but it's perfectly okay to raise another nation's flag or a flag signifying what you cosplay as or where you put your junk. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, and as you know, none of these problems will ever be solved unless we can talk about them or speak to each other about them freely. And if we can't, I'll say this as eloquently as possible: we're fucked.
Nerdrotic.com.
If you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like what you heard, I thank you for listening this long. I will see you in the next video.
The clear problem with the outlawing of insult is that too many things can be interpreted as such. It is indicative of a culture that has taken hold of the programs of successive governments, that with the reasonable and well-intentioned ambition to contain obnoxious elements in society, has created a society of an extraordinarily authoritarian and controlling nature, which to me doesn't represent any kind of progress at all. Underlying prejudices, injustices, or resentments are not addressed by arresting people. They are addressed by the issues being aired, argued, and dealt with, preferably outside the legal process. For me, the best way to increase society's resistance to insulting or offensive speech is to allow a lot more of it. The law should not be aiding and abetting this new intolerance. Free speech can only suffer if the law prevents us from dealing with its consequences.
Arrested. I just said the caution.
Arrested?
Yeah.
Well, what have we done wrong?
Are you with the caution? Do you want the order? Do you want the caution again, or are you?
Well, what have we done? Tell me what I've done.
There's been a member of the public who you've apparently been shouting at, calling him a muppet.
Right, a muppet, yeah, and?
You caused him alarm and distress.